Hello, beautiful souls out there. I hope you're able to get out in nature like Starlight is. Woo! Wow. The world is still spinning for Starlight. So anyway, I love you all. And I hope you're able to get out in nature like Starlight. Maybe it's not the temperature where Starlight is, but isn't it? This is beautiful. And anyway, today I had two topics, so I got a eeny, meeny, miny. Oh, we're not going to do that song. Isn't it wicked how they did this stuff? So anyway, I already got a video picked out, and I got to stay to it. And it's about be a fool for Jesus. That's what it's about. It's be a fool for Jesus. You know, there's times, but before I go into this video, so yes, this video is about be a fool for Jesus, because here I'm going to show you this. I gotta go through this. I love this. Isn't it so beautiful where it's like a little walkway in here? It's kind of funny, these drains are here, but not a lot of people actually go through here, but Starlight does. I like walking through here because it's so beautiful. And so yes, be a fool for Jesus. You know, be a fool for Christ, be a fool for the universe, be a fool for God, be a fool, you know. And when I say that, it's because there are times that when you are living for God, you know, people are going to think you're crazy. They're going to think you are whacked out. They're going to think maybe Starlight did too much drugs or something, you know. And that's what this video is about, is about not caring about other people, you know, the outside of you, is to remember, why are you doing it in the first place? When, you know, if you know, like, you want to write a book, you know, when you want to use your voice, this is mainly, you know, is that you gotta let go and not worry about other people. And my whole life, I was always worried about what other people were going to think. And because of my mentor, Infinite Waters, Ralph Smart. And if you haven't checked him out, really check him out, because I'll tell you what, my life will never be the same. And when I say that, I mean in a positive way. It's been amazing, because I've been watching his videos all these years. So, hello, my name is Starlight. Welcome to my YouTube channel, and you can find me on YouTube, and that is at Starlight, and that is Kathy with a K Dingman. Plus, don't forget, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, plus give me a thumbs up, and you can also leave a message down below, beep beep beep, and you can share my videos with your family, your friends. Don't forget to ring the notification bell, and you can check out my playlist. Plus, you can find me on Instagram at 1995 Starlight, or on Facebook, and that is Kathy with a K Dingman Starlight. You know, so it's about being a voice. It's about letting go of what people think, and that's why I am a voice for the voiceless. Not only am I a voice for the voiceless, I'm also, you know, about be the change that you want to see in the world. So I've been doing that inner work throughout years now, of working on myself, doing the inner work, working on my shadows, working on the demons that we all have. A lot of people, you know, they want to think that they're okay the way they are, not realizing there's layers and layers and layers, you know, of dealing with your shadow side. But that's not what we're here to talk about tonight. It's about not caring about what people think. What about God? What about the universe? You know, if we're gonna if we're gonna be a voice, don't hold back. Stop holding back. You know, I bet you there's some out there that have a lot on their mind, but they don't express themselves. They hold it in. They're afraid. They're afraid that somebody's going to attack them. They're afraid that, you know, they're going to get judged. Somebody's going to judge them for what they say, you know, and then they never get to express themselves. There's a lot of people all over, you know, all around the world that has a story, you know, has witnessed something, but they're afraid of what would everybody think if I really got out there and I told them exactly what I went through, and and so that's what, like, the other day, or yesterday, I made a video about, actually I didn't put that one out, so I can't tell you about that one yet, but it is so important to not follow what everybody else is doing and be like a clone. So it's so important to, break free from all that, because the wide way is the way of destruction. So you don't want to repeat what everybody else is doing. Is that you got to get your voice out in the world, and don't hold back. And there's a lot of people, I believe, that are out here, on my YouTube channel that are holding back. They're not really expressing themselves to the fullest like they want to. And I talked to a man today, how he was saying how he gets a lot of people upset because he will say what's on his mind, and sometimes that can get us in trouble, can it? Because a lot of people like myself, we don't want confrontation, even in relationships. But on that note, when it comes to speaking your mind, if somebody does something, sometimes it's best to keep quiet about some things, if you're only going to deal with that person that one time. But if it's a family member, somebody that you're always going to be around all the time and you can't avoid them, because at least those people, and you kind of know about them to know, how they're going to respond or react to you, by you being blunt with them and speaking your mind instead of holding it in. So it's so important. Like this guy and I were talking this morning, as we were in line for getting food, I was talking to him and he goes, "Wow, you sound so much like my wife," because we were talking about Santa Claus and how it's hard to find really very many people that say they're believers or Christians that are not serving two masters, two gods. And we were saying this stuff right out loud. And there's a whole bunch. We don't know these people. I didn't know any of these people in line, but we were expressing how we feel about different things. And so this guy he opened up and he said, I have been around people, and that he's got some kind of I don't know if it's ADHD or whatever, some kind of thing that he deals with, and so sometimes he gets all hyped up about stuff out in public and doesn't know how to respond to people. And he said that, he's gotten people mad at him because, the things that come out of his mouth. So on that note is that there's times that we have to be wise, though, in how we express ourselves, especially if it's people, in public, there's ways of wording things to still get your point across, and always have a way that they can't say anything back, because there's people out there in the world, they always want to have the last word. They always, and it makes them think that they're right about it. Even if they're 100% wrong, they like to have the last word. Have you ever met anybody like that, guys and girls, that, they always got to have the last word? And did it even make sense of what they said? Did it even, did it line up with what you were talking about? Or if it was just so it's always wise to, if you're going to say something, you kind of put them in their place where they have nothing else to say, and it ends, and that's it. That's it. And then you walk away. You don't need to be around those people, So this video it's all about different ways of speaking up and saying what's on your mind. And it's so good and it feels so good, when you're able to express yourself, fully, and without apologizing for that, because there was a time that out in New York, I was donating my plasma so I can get gas money or buy different things. And one time I went, I was like being like spiritually attacked by a lady that got in line. I stood in line, I was in line before the lady got in line to, get my vital signs checked out. And she saw me. She was actually behind me, punching in or whatever, to be able to stand in line. And the guy ahead of me, I said, "Hey, I'll be back. I got to go to the bathroom." And that is how this place was. When you get in line, that's your spot. What if you got to go pee like I had to? So you just get out of, you let the person know, "Hey, I got to use the bathroom. I'll be back," and, save my spot. Well, when I got back after going pee, because I couldn't hold my bladder anymore, I had my coffee or water. I had, water, because you couldn't drink coffee in the morning when you do the vitals, when you do plasma. So when I got back in line, this lady was like attacking me, like she had some kind of spirits. And she was being really rude, and she was making a big scene out of me and stuff like that. You know what? I'll tell you what. I couldn't believe what came out of my mouth, because I knew what was going on. I knew I was dealing with an unclean spirit, and I did. I got brave and bold, and I said, "Satan, get thee hence behind thee." And I'll tell you what, because it says in the Bible to do that. And before I know it, she didn't like that. But boy, I'll tell you, the nerves in my body was, woo. I was like, I've never done that out in public, and everybody heard what I said. I said it loud enough for her to hear what I said. And I knew once I said those words, that spirit in her couldn't mess with me anymore, because I already did what I'm supposed to do as far as a believer goes. And then she tried to make a big scene out of it by whispering to the people that worked there and trying to get me where they're going to tell me to get out of the building, and they had a security guard watching the whole thing, So there's times that we need to speak out, and like I said, this video is about making yourself a fool for Jesus or for God, the universe, or whatever name you got for it, is to, like if you got a YouTube channel or on Instagram, or if you go on Facebook and you're putting your voice out there in the world, don't hold back. There's times that, just like in with people that we know, there's times that we got relatives and friends and people that we really know, and where it's like, I don't want to say this to these people because I know this person. I know it's going to stir up a problem. And so we have to let that go, because it's a test. All of it's a test. It's a test. He's playing peekaboo with me. Peekaboo. And hello. Hi. Hang on. So it's a test. God is always going to test us one way or another. Are you going to back down because somebody's like doing something to you, and you're just going to, not say anything, and then later on you're going to regret it? Well, like with Starlight being a YouTuber, a YouTube creator, I make videos and I say some stuff in my videos. But you know what? God rewards me when I don't hold back and I express myself and I don't try to be people-pleasing. God rewards me because I used my voice and I didn't care about what other people thought about what I had to say. And that's what we need more people like, is to express yourself and don't hold back, and it's a part of healing. You'll feel a whole lot better when you express yourself than when you hold it in and, you let other people control you. It's a test. So don't hold back on the things that you want to say in life. It's so important, because you're going to release so much stress in your life. And hang on, hi. That's okay. She's so beautiful. I love her outfit. You're welcome. So yeah, like if you write a book, if you have Instagram, don't write the same stuff everybody else is writing about, instead of holding that in and saying, oh, I want to say this, because this is what happens to a lot of churches. is that a lot of churches, they don't really preach like they should, the way God really wants them, you know? Know why? A lot of times they're afraid they're going to lose church members. And, well, then, you know, they know which church members are really given. There's a lot of crap that goes on into the church. You know, there's people that, you know, because I've seen it, I've been there, you know, I don't have the t-shirt, but, you know, there's people that have lots of money that goes to church. And sometimes these people kind of control what the pastor says or doesn't say. You know, and some of these churches, they actually will know how much money the people are given. And that's the kind of church I went into. The pastor actually had like his suit coat, and he had his suit pants, and he would take people's money. He knew how much they were making a month, and he knew his math. You better be giving me 20% plus, or I'm going to preach on you. That's how that went. You know, if the money went down, if the numbers, you know, if the numbers went down and somebody was given, well, then the pastor's going to be preaching at your ass because you didn't give them that 20% plus. And so some people that go to church, they control the pastor by the money that they give. And they, you know, they can like want the pastor to preach to other people, but they might not want the pastor to preach to them. Hey, if you preach to me and show me my shadows, well, I'm not going to give you, you know, 20%. But we don't want to be like those people at the church. That's why a lot of, you know, God doesn't bless those churches, because they fear man. They're afraid they're going to lose somebody. They're afraid that, you know, they're going to step on somebody's toes. And I made some videos, I'm like, holy shit, I can't believe I made a video on that topic. I said, man, you know, before I make this video, I got balls to make a video. You know, for example, is don't hate me because I'm black. I don't even call people black. I call them men and women of color, even though race is an illusion. But you know what? It took balls to make a video with that title. And it doesn't matter how it came out. It doesn't matter on what people thought about it. What matters is that I did it. And my heart was in the right place. You know, so don't hold back. Don't be afraid of losing people, you know, on your YouTube channel or on Instagram, or, oh, maybe they're not going to give you money, you know, because, you know, you gave the medicine that they needed. You know, it'd be better that you'd really do what God, be a fool for God, be a fool for Jesus, be a fool for the universe, is to, I'm gonna, you know what, I've been holding this too long, and I know these people, you know, they're gonna get help, you know, by speaking what needs to be said, and God will bless you, you know, God will bless you, because it takes courage to say what's on your mind and not to hold back. It's better that you say what you've been holding instead of, you know, holding, you know, because God's going to see that you're holding on to things, and you're holding on, you know, a message that somebody really could get a lot of help for. You know, by holding back, they're not going to get the help that they need. They need to know, you know, people. So there's people that might kind of beat around the bush when they talk. You know, not really, you know, they kind of hit it, but they don't really go in deep. And that's what you want. You want to go in deep so you get to the root of the problem that these people are dealing with. If you go just only onto the surface area of the topic, then how are you really helping them? Because they really, I know how I am. You need to, you know, if you're going to help me out, you need to, you know, break it down in where I can fully understand exactly what the message is about. You know? So people need to not be afraid to really express themselves. And, you know, you see somebody that you can see, God helps us to be able to see what people need. But if you only hit the surface, you know, of the message, and they might totally miss out what you're doing. And God will reward you. Imagine when you actually say exactly how God wants you to put it out, and you don't fear man, you don't fear, oh my, how many people are going to leave, if I say this, how many people are going to, don't worry about it, because God's going to bless you with, God has God's own way of blessing you in ways that you don't see right now. So it's so important not to just to hit the surface, but get to the root of the problems, because that's what the people need, that way you're, with love. That's the whole thing, with love. The church that I went to, they got to the root of the problem, but it wasn't because of love. They hated you, they didn't like you. They were doing it because they wanted to hurt you. It wasn't out of love. Getting to the root of the problem. It was to embarrass you in front of the whole congregation. It was to have other people to laugh at you and have something to talk about. No, but you can help people, to get to the root of the problem, because God's going to know the heart. And that's what you want to do, is to, like weeds, pulling weeds. Man, I'll tell you what, there's some freaking horrible weeds. And sometimes with weeds, I've pulled a lot of weeds in my life as far as gardening goes, or even working for a landscaping company. And then I'll tell you what, my first honest job besides babysitting was working for a green landscaping job. And they kept on giving me the job of pulling weeds. And that's why I quit the place. I was too young anyway. I was 16, 17 years old. And, it's like, weeds again, pulling weeds, So you got to know your weeds. What kind of weeds are you pulling out? Because I'll tell you what, there's some weeds, you can't pull them out. You got to dig them up because they got prickers on them. Just like people, there's people that, they might bite back. So you got to, you got to kind of dig it up, and be able to still get those roots all the way out, because if you don't get those roots out completely, where there's no more roots underneath, then, that problem is going to come right back up. So God wants us to really get to the root of the problem to help the people out. And God, don't fear man. That's a big problem that people have. They fear man. God wants to bless you in such ways. If we only would, give people what they really need with love, like I said, because you care about them, you want to see them, and, it doesn't matter how much somebody gives you money, because if they give you a lot of money all the time, and you're like, I don't want to say anything to offend this person, well, then you're really not helping the person out, are you? No, you're not helping the person out. Because they're going to think that, hey, I'm doing really good. Don't worry about the money. Don't worry about, what you're going to lose. Because God's going to replace it and double it for you. So anyway, I love you so much. Starlight actually has sometimes a hard time holding back. Not holding back, but to not overdo it with saying too much. People that have no filters, like Starlight has no filters. It's like we're all made differently, and some people, they have some filters, some people they love so much, it's that they're sweet and they're kind and they really want to help out. But we really, by really helping out, we got to get to the root of the problem. And you know what? They might walk away. Let them walk away. Because you know what? Anytime I've walked away, maybe 2 or 3 days later or a week later, when it has time to sink in, and I realize that the person wasn't trying to help me. It took a lot of guts to tell me what I needed to hear, not what I want to hear. They took a risk to lose me as a friend, or a supporter. because their love was that strong that they wanted the best for me, and they knew I needed help, and they just gave me what I needed, and that's what I needed. You know, I could get upset, I could scream, I could put up a fight, but later on I'm going to say, wow, you really care about me, because you didn't just, you know, beat around the bush, you didn't just do the surface, you actually pulled it out by the root. And look at me grow, baby. So I love you so much. So be a fool for Christ. Don't care what other people think. You know, use your voice. You know, so important to use your voice. And I love you so much. So this is Starlight. Don't worry about people. You know, like the churches. That's a lot of the big problems at the churches. There's people that they give money to the pastor. Hey, preach about everybody else in the church, but don't preach at me. If you preach at me, I'm not going to give you 20%. Maybe I won't even tithe. Maybe I'll walk out the door. And they're like, oh, no, we need you. They're not really trusting and believing in God. You know, instead they're fearing man, of thinking that they're going to walk out the door and never come back to church and never tithe again. God wants us to, you know, be a fool, you know. People might not even like what you got to say, might not even agree with what you got to say. Whether you're right or wrong, God really just, it's about the heart, and it's, God sees all that. And God will bless you.
Give me a thumbs
you know,
up,
when we
don't
hold back and we just, you know, give people what they need,
my videos,
you know, and what will help them out along the way.
Don't forget the notification
and that goes for anybody that is out there, is to don't worry about their expressions and the outward appearance of people, and don't worry about how they're going to respond. If you do things because God wants you to do something, you'll get blessed. I love you so much.
Thank you for watching. This is Starlight.
That is my message for today.
Starlight,
Alrighty.
love, light, and peace.